It seems like clockwork. There's always some type of big kerfuffle online when it comes to Nintendo and their next system and the power and too weak or this or that, and the new controversy that's sprung up online, sometimes on YouTube, different social media, but a lot on Twitter or X, is the Nintendo Switch 2 being around PS4 level and how that's going to be a huge problem, and Nintendo doesn't know what they're doing, and the fans are just gullible and stupid, and how dare them not expect a 4080 PC graphics, Nvidia graphics inside of a handheld form factor because they're dumb and they expect that. So it's all over the place. I'm exaggerating a little bit with that, but this is the type of conversation that I've seen online. I've seen so many of my mutuals be engaging in these conversations back and forth, and people pointing the finger at each other and all this nonsense, and I'm thinking to myself, complaining about power before we have any confirmed specs or games is so idiotic, considering how old our medium is. We have been playing games, or at least the gaming industry has been around for decades at this point, going all the way back to pretty much the late 60s/70s, and we've had so much different things happen that we can look in the past and say, okay, well, what happened in the past and how can things happen in the future? And if you look at the past, heck, even the recent past, people doing this are absolutely crazy. You've got to be crazy if you think that complaining about power right now at this point, before we've even seen the games, is a logical response to anything. Because if history has told us anything, is that power ultimately, when it comes to comparisons with different systems, is not the determining factor if you're going to have fun, or if people are going to buy the system, or if it's going to sell well. It's just not, and we're going to discuss that at full here. But before we get into that, what's good, everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to another video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos first. Now let's go ahead and jump into this, because peeps never learn. Now, Nintendo systems, they sell based off of their first party games and marketing, and obviously good third party support or good third party games kind of come in, sprinkle that in to help out with everything. But overall, Nintendo systems are going to live and die with what they do with their first party to get the enthusiasts, to get the fans excited about purchasing the system. You can look no further than the Nintendo Switch, when people thought, oh man, there's not much here third party, there's not much here with power, and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild comes out and it completely changes the forecast of what people thought. Then right after that, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe comes out, and it was pretty much all elevated from there. Nintendo Switch was selling incredibly well, it was doing great, and it was outselling Xbox and PlayStation, and ultimately ended up outselling both of those systems with the PS4 and the Xbox One pretty handily overall over the course of its life. So that's something that I don't understand why people are still on this. It's got to be 5 billion times more powerful, or it's got to be like this, or it's that. No, it doesn't. It's got to have great games, and they've got to think about what they're going to do with their marketing plan. Now, don't get me wrong. Third-party support is very important. Power is important as well. Those things are important, and trust me, they're all looking at that in terms of a form factor that's going to work with the cost and other things. But you know what's even more important when it comes to that? Modern architecture, in terms of using stuff that's new, and development tools, providing developers with the best possible APIs, the best possible development tools and dev kits to get their games ported over. Now, we also have to consider a host of other things. We've got to consider battery life, we got to consider the cost of the components and the cost of the system overall, profitability, if that's going to be a factor at all, form factor, how it's going to actually look and fit in your hands, heat production, cooling. There are so many other things that you have to factor in. And when people sit there online, or when I see people say it's got to be as strong as PlayStation 5, a system that's literally like 20 times bigger than the Nintendo Switch, I'm thinking, do you guys have no concept of what's feasible with a hybrid platform. It's not like Steam Deck OLED, which costs more if you get the SSD model of it. That costs more than a PlayStation 5, okay? And it's nowhere near as powerful as a PlayStation 5, but it seems like people were completely fine with that. So if you're expecting the Nintendo Switch 2 to somehow be a $400 system or less, but have PS5 level tech specs inside of it, you have no idea about technology. Seriously, for like a hybrid platform, just sit this one out. Now, another thing that I want to focus on here, because if we look at it overall, the best selling systems of all time usually have one of the best gaming libraries of all time. And that's what's important to gamers, in addition to making sure games run good and the prices of the games and the ecosystem. There's many factors, but if you look at the top 7 selling systems of all time, go through and look at it. You've got the Nintendo Wii at 101 million, the original PS1 at 102 million, the PS4 at 117 million, you have the Game Boy and Game Boy Color at 118 million, you have the Nintendo Switch at 132 million, the Nintendo DS at 154 million, and the PS2 at about 155 million plus or so. Now, what do all of these systems have in common? Well, they were the weakest in their generation for the most part, because if you look at it with the PS4, that's the only one that you can say, all right, that was the strongest when all the different systems launched. But at the same time, the Xbox One X came out, and it's not like that system blew away the PS4. People still bought the PS4 and the PS4 Slim at a higher clip and rate than they bought the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. So pretty much every single generation, if you look through with it, it's always the system that doesn't have the best tech specs. That really is a system that's profitable. It's got a lot of great games. It's got a good marketing plan. These are the things that ultimately end up being the most important things overall. And that's why systems like the Nintendo DS, which was really weak when it came out in comparison to what technology could have been in there, still is the second best selling system of all time. Same reason why the Nintendo Switch, 132 million units plus, it's been the best selling system since the PlayStation 2, since the Nintendo DS. No other system has even got close. PS4 is the only other one next that's even closest if you're talking about from a power range, but the top 4, Game Boy, Nintendo Switch, DS, PS2, all of these systems were at the bottom in terms of power. So what does that tell you? It's going to be about the games. So I don't understand why people are already complaining, already whining, already sitting there and saying all of these things, because it makes no sense to me. Now listen, guys, the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series are great systems. I have the PlayStation 5. It's a great system. I have the Xbox Series X. It's a great system, and the Xbox Series X is very powerful. The PS5 is very powerful, but I think it would be a little bit of a misdirection to sit here and say that all that power and everything has produced the best generation. If you look at the exclusives, if you look at what's going on, you can't sit here and tell me normally like, okay, we're getting all of these great games and exclusives from Sony and Microsoft, when we're not really. We're not getting a ton of that. If you look at the exclusive libraries for these systems, it's not like they're producing the most award-winning games that come out and blow everything away because of how great the power is. It's just not that. And the games are getting incredibly expensive to develop. They're taking a lot of time as well. Listen, love my PlayStation 5, but it's not like they're cranking out exclusives all the time, and it seems like they're having trouble when it comes to other factors of development and things. So to me, at least, I'm looking at it this way: there needs to be a balance of these systems. You can have ultra powerful PC games that are running at the highest frame rates and resolutions and all that, and that's great, that's awesome. You can have the PS5 and the Xbox Series that try to emulate that from a cheaper standpoint right there on your TV, and you can have a hybrid system like the Nintendo Switch that isn't like those other systems, that's maybe a bit different, and they focus on other things like getting out a good release lineup of exclusive games for people to play anywhere that they want. I think that it's okay to kind of have all of that balance and to have all of those things in this ecosystem. Everything doesn't need to be the same. It doesn't need to operate the same. And this industry has been like that pretty much since the beginning. We've had a variety different people, different companies, consoles, whatever the case is, and they're all aiming sometimes to do things a little bit differently when it comes down to it, like we have at this point. Look at all these different handheld PCs that are coming out that kind of have different features here and there, kind of the same thing with the Nintendo Switch, same thing with the PlayStation Portal, same thing with the Logitech G Cloud. There's all these different devices that are coming out that are trying to leverage everything in this marketplace, because it's the biggest entertainment thing in the world when it comes down to it, is gaming. So I don't understand this logic that people do have when it comes down to the Nintendo Switch and Switch 2 and PS4 power and all that. And I do want to talk just a little bit more about that, because this whole PS4 thing is silly. PS4 is like a decade plus old in terms of technology. This is going to be modern technology. This is going to be DLSS. There's going to be other things that make this, in terms of what we get, is going to be better than what PS4 was or anything like that, right? So to me, it doesn't really make sense to compare it to anything that's older. It's going to be a custom SoC. It's going to be something different overall. And I think that the system, when it does finally come out, when we finally do see things, people are going to be like, wow, that looks great, especially for Nintendo doing things. It looks pretty good. So to me, it's just silly right now at this point. Now, that doesn't mean that it should be absolved from criticism at all, right? I think that criticism can come in. If you feel, once we see the games, once we get the specs, that it's not good enough, or you're going to be upset with that, that's fine. People can complain about it at that point, and fair game, complain. Everybody can talk about that freely if that's what you want to talk about. But right now, at this point, before we've even seen anything and we've got an official confirmation from Nintendo to show off even just some of the games, is just stupid. It's just not something that somebody logical would do at this point, because if they show the games before they even talk about tech specs, if they show the games look awesome, they look good to you, then what? All of that complaining, all of that whining, all of that crying, all of the assumptions about what you think should have been good or not because you don't understand technology, or you don't understand what a hybrid is, all of a sudden becomes silly. All of a sudden becomes really weird to look at. So that's the reason why I made this video, because I saw all of this all over my timeline yesterday and the day before, and I'm thinking to myself, like, why do people do the same thing over and over again? Because this is the same type of talk that we got before the Nintendo Switch. It's the same type of talk that we got with the Wii. It's always the same type of talk that we get with anything when it comes to systems. So it's just weird, and we'll see what happens going forward in the future. I'm looking forward to seeing what they finally do announce. I'm just trying to shift through all of the fake rumors, fake leakers, fake stuff, get through all of that, and let's get to the official stuff, or from people that actually report and know and have real sources. So that's my thoughts on this, guys. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate that. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and we will see you for the next video. Peace.